It's Wednesday night. Here we are. Really excited as usual, but even more so tonight. We have a legend, literally a legend on the call, on the Zoom, on the YouTube tonight. And I'm with my main man, the X Factor. What's happening?
The X Factor's in the building. Now, it's Wednesday night. You know, what's great about Wednesday nights is that we have this show. But what's even better about this Wednesday night is exactly what you just said. We have a legend, a living legend. How often do you get to see living legends in the flesh right here in front of you talking to you? Not too often. But tonight, you're going to get it. So super excited about that. X Factor's in the house. Let's get it rolling.
And I know he's the type of guy, he's a humble guy, but some of these facts, Matt, you can't argue with. So, a native of Portland, Matt led the Gonzaga squad to the 1999 Elite Eight. Took him to the Elite Eight next year, took him to the Sweet 16. Matt, when he graduated, was the all-time assist leader in Gonzaga history. And that includes John Stockton, who I believe, is that who you passed, Matt?
Yep.
Passed John Stockton. Currently second, Josh Perkins had a few more turnovers, a few more games, but so you're still up there, and sixth all-time in points. So I'm really excited about that. Also want to hear a little bit about your international experience. I know you won a gold medal, Matt, with the USA team. 99, you're an honorable mention All-American, 7-year pro, and now the executive director of the largest 3-on-3 tournament in the world. And it's not even close. It's not even like people can argue, or there's not even anything close. And I'm really excited to hear you tell us a little bit more about what's happening with that and kind of how you guys have adjusted to the pandemic. So maybe just take us through how does the University of Portland lose a guy like you? As in the West Coast Conference, a hometown guy, I know the Santangelo name is one you're really proud of, rightfully so. As a guy that lives in Portland now, I know the name well. A lot of brothers and sisters, and I know you've learned a lot from them. So I want to hear a little bit about what you took from your brothers and your sisters. So maybe just give us a little bit of a background and kind of walk us up to where you are now. And then we can kind of fire some questions off and chop it up a little bit.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm really excited about this living legend you're going to have on after me. I'm just like the warm-up act. And then, I mean, apparently someone really interesting is coming up next. So I'm really excited for that person. But no, I mean, you kind of teed me up with a lot of stuff there. But since the last one I remember in your alma mater, University of Portland, I'm a North Portland boy, born and raised, not too far away from the Bluff where University of Portland is. Kind of on the other side of the tracks, maybe, of where University of Portland is. Youngest of 9 kids. I got, 3 brothers, 5 sisters. So big crowds don't really scare me too much. And then I kind of tongue in cheek say my brothers taught me how to be physically tough. My sisters taught me how to be mentally and emotionally tough. The lessons I learned from my sisters are much more valuable than the lessons I learned from my brothers. Started playing ball in my driveway really young. I have pictures of before I can remember watching my family play in the driveway, my brothers play. My family was always, relatively athletic. Maybe athletic's the wrong word. We were game players. My dad's a big game player. And what I mean by that is I remember waiting for the bus for certain things, and we'd start pitching pennies against the wall. We ping pong table, pool, guessing games. I mean, just kind of always just had something to do, not super competitive, but just like to play games, and the camaraderie and the spirit behind having something to do and being active. And so that's where my family has a history of that. And, I had a brother that played small college football at Linfield down in McMinnville, Oregon, actually won a national championship there. Had another brother that played junior college baseball before a car accident kind of did his knees in. So, we were, like I said, generally pretty athletic. I started playing ball in 3rd grade, started playing year round in 7th grade. Always loved it. I wasn't one that you had to convince to go work out. I liked working on the game. I liked the almost the solitude of just going out in my driveway and just getting jumpers up, daydreaming in front of big crowds, or, buzzer beating shots, all those things. And that kind of opened up a whole lot of doors for me throughout my life that I still, at 42, I turned 43 next month. that I still get to enjoy. Like, I'm still very much entrenched in the game of basketball and the sport of basketball. And I'm certainly tied to the community because of what I do here in Spokane. But, you know, the broader basketball community, wherever a ball's bouncing, we all kind of speak a similar language. And it really is a global connector, you know, the sport and the game of basketball, which I'm really grateful for, to still be involved with it.
That's awesome. I don't love that you went to Gonzaga instead of my home, but maybe I should have followed you since you left Oregon and went to the Gonzaga, but they definitely weren't recruiting me, and neither was University of Portland. I walked on. But I know there is something special about that Zag kind of pipeline and how successful it's been. And I was reading, you had a quote where you said, there's something that connects us all. It's really special, that sense of something bigger than yourself. Yep. And that humility and just that program first mentality. We had Rem Backamus, one of the ultimate walk-ons.
Yeah.
Hunt, the walk-on at DePaul, me at Portland. But Rem's kind of a legend when it comes to being a walk-on. Yeah. And so just that, talk a little bit about Gonzaga and why Gonzaga and kind of what it means now looking back 20 plus years to where you guys were the Cinderellas and now they're not.
Well, this isn't your, you know, when we talk about Gonzaga, when I got started, this is your mom and dad's Gonzaga. This isn't the perennial powerhouse that it is now and then what it's grown to. You know, they won their first West Coast Conference Championship in 1994. They went to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 95. Traditional 2-15 seed. They got whooped up by Joe Smith at Maryland. I came out of high school in 95 too, so that was my senior year in high school. But I actually played for the head coach at the time was Dan Fitzgerald, kind of an old legendary coach at GU and you know, in the West Coast, up and down the West Coast. And he and Coach Few recruited me. Coach Few recruited guards, so they both recruited me out of high school. And I remember they were both in my living room, my parents' living room in North Portland, doing their home visit. And I got to back up one quick second, because if you've ever tried to get in line for food for dinner with five sisters and 3 brothers, you realize real quickly that there's a lot more things bigger than you are as an individual. There are a lot of things that we all are just a part of. And we all want to be a positive part, but we're just a part. We play a role. So that lesson was, easily recognized at a young age for me, and gladly recognized and acknowledged at a young age. But when Fitz and Few came in, he kind of reiterated the same message. He said, no one's bigger than the program. No one. But if I had a basketball, I would hand it to you and say, we're going to go where you're going to take us. And so I still get goosebumps thinking about, what that moment and thinking about that quote, because, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker, because no one's bigger than your family. No one's bigger than your neighborhood. No one's bigger than your community. No one's bigger than your team. But he was giving me the ability to have influence and impact on the direction of that particular unit. And for us, in this case, it's the team and the program. And I was really, really grateful for that. So it was like, I understand that we needed to do it all together, but he was giving me, a little bit of a boost in confidence, saying, okay, but we're going to follow you. And that really, really did. Now, as a man and a parent now, I realize he probably said that in every high school living room that he was ever in, but it worked on me, darn it. Like I loved it. I still love it. I love the idea of it. And so that's really why I chose GU. I had good schools. My final 5 schools were Oregon, Stanford, Rice in Houston, and Northwestern in Chicago. I mean, those are my final 5 scholarship offers and the schools that I went on recruiting trips to. I wasn't smart enough to know what a Stanford degree would have done for me 20 years later. But I also just wanted to play ball, to the point of the passion behind the sport of basketball. I wanted to put myself in a position that I could have influence, that I could play a lot of minutes, that I could grow as an athlete, grow as a young human, and have a chance at winning. And that's Gonzaga gave me that opportunity. They had already had the building blocks of that culture that you're alluding to. And then our group came in and put our fingerprints on it and stepped it up a level. And it just seems like every generation after, it just continues to take this thing to a whole nother level. So, 20 plus years later, I'm really grateful that I get to be associated with it, that I get to talk about it, that I get to be around it, that it's so acknowledged and recognized for how unique it is, because it is really, really special. It's an easy program to be a fan of. It's really easy to get behind the athletes and the administration and the coaching staff, because they are what you see. They're pretty humble, hardworking, confident, and successful.
You know, it's amazing that you say that, and because it's really, really hard for me to think of Gonzaga as anything other than a powerhouse, because I'm a little bit younger. You know, I'm only 21 years old. So I've always, growing up, I've always seen Gonzaga as, you know, a Final Four team. And every single year, they're a contender. They're a 1 seed in the tournament every year. They win the conference every single year, and it's not even close. So it's amazing for me to think of it as a mom and pop place. And it's cool, like, what I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I think something that probably really added to that is the culture. I mean, the culture. Everybody that talks about Gonzaga talks about how powerful that culture is. You know, the recruiting aspect obviously sounds great. Catch and hook, like you were talking about. But, I mean, you know, they recruit great kids and, you know, who turn into great people and are great players as well.
Yeah, and I like that, but I also think there's a certain character quality, because being a Zag means something to us. You know, for people that know what it, you know, that are a part of it, that's a character quality, being a Zag, like being tough or being tall or being whatever. Like that's a physical attribute, it seems. But there's also a certain type of athlete or young person that recruits themselves to Gonzaga. You know, that Spokane makes sense, the West Coast Conference makes sense, Gonzaga makes sense. So it's this synergistic kind of connection between, it's a powerhouse now, but, you know, especially with this recruiting class this year for the 2021 season, like those young athletes have got to come in and be like, this makes sense to me. You know, they could go to any school in the country. Literally, Jalen Suggs could be anywhere he wants to be, but he chose Gonzaga. And he's just one example, the most recent example of a generation of athletes that said, that makes sense. I want to be a part of that. And it's hard work. It's knowing that you are just a piece of playing a role inside the team. Is a certain humility. It's a certain toughness and grit. And it's a certain kind of internal demand of excellence. I don't know how else to say it, because it's lightning in a bottle, but that's unfair to it, because it's 20 plus years of lightning in a bottle. That's not luck or fluke. That is true excellence year in and year out.
By the way, while we're on the topic, you know, it wasn't the school that I wanted to hear, but when you came out to Chicago to check out Northwestern, what did you think about Chicago? Because it's a city that has my heart.
So I've been to Chicago. It seemed like during my college years, somehow I found a reason to be in Chicago every summer. It was either I worked the Michael Jordan camp at Moody Bible after my sophomore year. The pre-draft camp, our combine was there after my senior year. Obviously, I went, you know, recruited to Northwestern, so I got to go to Chicago for that. So it seemed like for a few years, I was a Playboy All-American. Only Playboy my mom has ever purchased is when I was a Playboy All-American. So there's a claim to fame.
Playboy All-American.
Yeah. So, but they also brought us out to Chicago for that. So literally, like 4 or 5 years, I got to spend, you know, a few days in Chicago, which is great. So I love Chicago. I love the energy. You know, we always were right downtown, Magnificent Mile. Northwestern was kind of funny at the time, which is a great, you know, kind of with the social comment, but the team was half white, half black. The first night I go out with the half white team to a fraternity party, I don't see a black teammate. The second night I go out with the half black team, we go to a black fraternity party, see a step show, it's awesome, it's off the hook. Never see a white teammate. And I'm going like, this is stupid. Like, how are you supposed to be a team? Because where I grew up and what basketball has done for me is it's exposed me to a lot of different people, different walks of life, from different parts of the world, different shapes, sizes, everything. And like I said, I believe in the sport and the power of it to connect people and really mobilize communities and mobilize people and empower people. And so that really like hurt my heart when it was so separate at Northwestern. And I was like, gosh, you're not very good in the Big Ten, because back then they weren't very good in the Big Ten. And you really don't seem to get along. Like, I know it's a good education and Chicago's amazing, but I'm out. Like I wanted something different with my college experience.
That's a powerful piece to recognize right there. Because first of all, like you said, Chicago college experience, a lot of kids would be like, hey, okay, Chicago it is. I'm going. Big city, windy city, let's do it. But that's cool that you recognize, first of all, you know, where you belonged, and second of all, how you recognize, okay, everybody needs to be together or else this whole thing isn't going to work. You know, we can't have an operation where there's one side and another side. We all have to be like this. That's all the best teams had that quality, that togetherness, that camaraderie. So that's great for you to recognize, especially even from a young age.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I will share one other quick recruiting story, because I wasn't always that mature, because where I should have gone was Rice, because on my recruiting trip, they beat Texas in football for the first time in 55 years. So there we were, a little 16-year-old. We tore down the goalposts. I was like, college is amazing. Like this is it's Houston and Rice, and I was like, this blew my mind, right? Because we were, I mean, literally on the field running around. I had no idea what I was cheering for. I just knew it was exciting. And I was like, that was a dope recruiting trip, right? Because that was a major milestone for the university. But luckily I was able to overlook that too, or look past that to other things that I held valuable.
You said they beat Texas or Texas A&M, or who was it?
Texas. They beat the Longhorns back when Texas was Texas, not in recent years. I mean, this is a long time ago. These little schools didn't beat the big boys back in the day until, you have one that did it maybe 1 year, and when we did it in the Elite Eight, but to do it over and over and over again like they've done, this is uncharted territory for what Gonzaga's been able to accomplish.
And Gonzaga has been able to accomplish amazing things. And I know you said it's an easy school to root for. I will tell you that we beat the Zags. Matt, I work that into every conversation I have pretty much, is when I played, we went to Spokane, the old kennel, so the same kennel you played in, and we walked out of there with a dub. And that is extremely rare. I need to look it up, but I think it was 40 or 50 some games they'd won in a row.
Yeah.
And then we broke that streak.
What year was that?
2003.
Oh, yeah, that was right when COVID broke out. They probably had a bunch of guys in quarantine. You probably played the JV squad.
That's probably what it was. That must have been. Otherwise, I can't explain how the University of Portland would have knocked off the powerhouse that is Gonzaga.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you tell me a little bit about your parents and kind of the influence they had. Obviously, 9 kids. What did they do? How did they make their money? How did everybody get to eat? Kind of how did they teach you guys to be, I mean, I know you pretty well, and I know you're really successful, and hearing you speak on some other podcasts and things, I know you have a successful family. Talk to me a little bit about your parents.
Yeah, I mean, really humble. We grew up in North Portland, and North Portland was an interesting place back then. And, when I grew up, I'm a lot younger than the rest of my brothers and sisters. So I want to say when I was born, my oldest brother just left for the Air Force. He's 20 years older than I am. And we span a long duration. But North Portland was really interesting. So I'll talk a little bit about North Portland. I'll come back to my mom and dad. North Portland. So my parents have been in the same home now for 59 years in North Portland. And my mom in that time has been interviewed twice on the news. Both times basically the same question. The first time was after my dad found a man stabbed 17 times in self-defense in our raspberry bushes out inside of the house. The second time was when a drive-by shooting left 2 kids murdered, 2 kids wounded on our front porch, right in the front of the house. And both times my mom was asked, what's it like living in such a bad neighborhood or dangerous neighborhood? And both times my sweet mother responded oh, we have our problems just like everywhere else. Well, it wasn't until I moved to Spokane, the South Hill of Spokane, I realized, man, we ain't got the same problems. It's North Portland's problems back then were a little bit different than what most people's problems are dealing with, at least where my kids are growing up now. So it was a really diverse neighborhood, and it wasn't always the healthiest. It wasn't the best habits. It wasn't the best environment. And in times it was really violent. There was a big gang influence coming up from California during my time in North Portland. The gentrification that it is now hadn't really taken place quite yet. It was still, a decade plus away. So we lived in an environment. I try to give you those stories just for context for the neighborhood, but also that's where my parents could afford to live. We had a lot of love, but not a lot of stuff. Obviously with that many kids, food was at a premium. My mom used to, bake and cook, make jam and cook. And there used to be fruit trees down in the neighborhood. We'd go pick fruit in the summer. I mean, we were a little bit of hustling, but not desperate, if that makes sense. There was some hustle to my parents, but there have to be with 9 kids, but we weren't, a ton of love, ton of support, based in faith, and just a great example of service. So my dad worked at ESCO for 55 years, I think, which is an old foundry in Northwest Portland, and just was kind of middle management. Not tremendous leadership or material success, but just he went to work every day and he did his thing. My mom took care of us, which was probably an infinitely more difficult job of raising 9 children than what my dad was doing. My dad ran the largest bingo game in the state of Oregon for seemingly a generation. And that's how he paid for us to go to Catholic schools. All 9 of us went through Catholic grade school and Catholic high school. And it was always through subsidy, scholarship, and then obviously service to the community, as in the example of bingo. And so every one of my siblings at some point had worked bingo. Like I set up bingo tables after school. My older brothers would be security for bingo in the evenings. And every little old lady in the state of Oregon knew who Nick Santangelo was. We'd be walking down the street, hey, Nick. And he'd go, hey. And we'd walk, Dad, who was that? He's like, I have no idea. Like, just, because he was known for bingo. And so, so that sense of service, that sense of, like we talked about earlier, being a part of something much bigger and greater than you are, that was always on full display in our life, day in and day out. He still, matter of fact, runs at 84 years old with COVID, one of the largest food rooms for St. Vincent de Paul in Portland. And of course, you can imagine the amount of need that's happening now with food in this time. So he's really working hard with his team to help manage that and provide as much help to the community as he can. He always jokes around like, he goes and delivers communion back when you could do such a thing, several months ago. And he's delivering communion to people that are younger than he is. He's like, when did I become the little old man? And so, but he's out there still doing his thing. So all those things are really prevalent in my life, clearly throughout this, and which has reinforced this idea of, just doing the best that we can. And really maybe the mark of a person is how you can make people around you better. And how are you helping people? And I think that was also reinforced in my position as a point guard, and at GU, I remember Coach Few told me early on in my career at GU, he's like, the only thing that matters is winning. Like you could score 20 or you could score 0. If you got the win from the point guard spot, you did your job, and so I think that really kind of hit home for me of like, my job is to make people around me better. Now I had a skill set in basketball that I could go score. So some nights the best thing I could do for the team to help them win was go score. Some nights it wasn't, it was to facilitate. And so it wasn't necessarily I was just a one-trick pony. It was me having to read each game, take it how it came to me, and then really to be able to put my foot down on the throttle when it needed to be put down on the throttle. And luckily I kind of had at least then a skill set that could facilitate some of that. And so those are all lessons I learned from, just from watching my mom and dad. They didn't preach a lot to me. By the time I was coming up, I joke, my parents would be like, hey, here are the keys to the car and here's $5. I'd be like, Mom, Dad, I'm 12. Like, they're like, I don't care. Just get out of here. Like, they were tired, man. 9 kids. Are you kidding? They're like, just please, you'll be fine. Like, we've been through all this before. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't even reach the pedals. But that's kind of how it was. Cause they were, they were OG parents by the time I was coming around. So there's nothing I did that they hadn't seen before.
That's incredible. I can tell they're incredible people just because I know you, Matt. And I love some of this. I was writing down almost as quick as I could, but had a lot of love, not a lot of stuff. That's incredible. They led based in faith and service. If the world had more Nick Santangelos, it'd be a better place, I think. I mean, just from what you've said, I don't know.
Don't ask Nancy. I don't know if Nancy would corroborate that statement.
She's a saint.
Just throwing it out there.
She's a saint for having done what she's done and raised the kids and family she did. I can tell she's a saint. But that's an incredible story of just loving your kids, providing and serving others, and not asking, well, when do I get new or when's my next? It's more, and that's something I know I'm thankful my father, we didn't have a lot, but I never felt like I went without. And there was not an abundance. And there was times when it was, hey, we can go to the basketball game on Friday night at the high school, or we can have pizza, but we can't do both.
Yeah.
And that's a life lesson that I still carry with me today. You can't have everything you want. You can't have sometimes you don't get to go to the basketball game after you have pizza. You just got to go home. Yeah. And I can tell just by hearing you talk and hearing those stories, based in faith, that's what they raised you in, and raised and based in faith is a great place to be, and a special family. So, I mean, that's how you make others better is how you want to be judged. And I think that's a great quality and a great way to sort of judge your success is in service to others and how you make them better. And obviously you were an incredible player, 7 years playing professional, all rookie team, and you had a lot of success in basketball as a point guard. I want to show a couple screen shares because the guys watch, and I just have to, because people give me a hard time when I pull out my pictures with the baggy shorts and the no socks look.
Yep.
Right? They give me a hard time. I'm like, no, and look how, that's the look right there.
That look was hot right there. I got the John B. Beard thing. I don't know what that. Someone should have probably slapped me for that. My wife, who was then my girlfriend, probably should have straightened me out on that one. But yeah, that was the look. I was doing something with that one.
Wow, now it's all about the short shorts and the big socks and all that. But this is reverse psychology right here. But I will give you looked good though. You looked good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. What about this one? USA basketball. Talk a little bit about representing the country in the world, or was it the World Games or the
World University Games? Yeah, World University Games. So like a mini Olympics. So basically, this was the 22 and under team, the collegiate team. Got to go to Colorado Springs and try out. We ended up I got invited then to the mini camp, which was with Oliver Purnell, who was at Dayton at the time. And the assistant coach was Dan Munson, who was my head coach at Gonzaga. And this is coming off the Elite Eight year in 1999. So this was the summer of 99. Go and make the team. I mean, the team has Kenyon Martin, Brendan Haywood, Chris Mim, Chris Carrawell, ACC Player of the Year, Corey Bradford from Illinois, Mark Madsen, the Mad Dog from Stanford. Who else? Pete Michael from Cincinnati, Scooney Pinn, Eric Barkley from St. John's. I mean, it was stacked. So it was a nice team. And we go to Palma de Mallorca, Spain. So the Mediterranean, an island off the coast of Spain, for the World University Games, which is like a mini Olympics, which is really cool because you're there and you kind of an athlete village, and you have, athletes from all over the world, of course, but then athletes of all different sports. And we go back there for 2 weeks and we win a gold medal. I come off the bench, just kind of a little bit different role for me with that group. But at the time, I tied a world record for most threes in a game by a Team USA athlete until Carmelo Anthony beat it when I think he knocked down 8. I knocked down 5 or 6, and I tied the current record. So at one point, I had a world record. Talk about Playboy All-American. At one point, I had a world record.
And you tried to say you're not a legend. Come on, and then
this guy is literally a living legend. And until that one Carmelo guy came by.
Yeah,
I don't know if you heard about him since, but.
And so, but it was great. I roomed with Pete Michael and Kenyon Martin and Mark Madsen, 4 dudes to a room. Talk about an odd couple. You have Mark Madsen, who was a devout LDS, and just an awesome, super positive, wonderful man. You had Kenyon Martin and Pete Michael from the Natty, back when it was, the nasty Natty under Huggins. And then you had me in the middle, and me and Kenyon Martin hit it off. We had a great, we ended up spending a lot of time together. And it was a wonderful experience, and to represent the country and come on with a gold medal. So, I mean, it's, once in a lifetime type stuff.
I will say that I'm hearing some great DePaul connections going on. Earlier, you talked about St. Vincent DePaul and the connection with your father. Then you talked about Oliver Purnell, who was the head coach at DePaul before our current head coach.
Yeah. Yep. So I got ties to Chicago. I'm about it. I like it.
Hey, we love you out here, man. You might as well get it. You're always welcome. we love you out here.
Talk about this one now. Talk about this one.
I don't know what that one. I mean, it looks like we're at Key Arena, maybe.
Yeah, it might be Key.
Someone must have poked me in the eye. So that I can tell you that's my senior year, because that was the first year we had Nike uniforms. We had no-name uniforms up until that point. Those are the first year of the Nike uniforms. Look at that muscle. I don't know what you want me to talk about. I mean, there's so many good things happening here.
I was hoping
with this young man.
Tears of joy, or
I don't even know what it's from. I'm sure I'm happy about something. I think I got fouled. That's what I'm going with.
Maybe, but at least you're not down in tears like Adam Morrison in that
right
game, right?
So from that we got poked in the eye. You had been working out, and then Nike uniforms.
Yeah.
But the Nike uniforms, that just shows how they were. I mean, it wasn't like you had road uniform 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Like we had a road uniform and a home uniform.
mean, this is like my big brother moment. I did the radio for Gonzaga basketball for 6 of 7 seasons. Actually got to go with them to the national. I called the national championship game and called there when they first were #1 in the country, when they first were #1 seed, when they finally went back to the Elite Eight in 2015. I got some really good experiences while on the radio. I got more gear as the radio color analyst than I ever did as a student athlete at GU. When I showed up my freshman year, they gave us Russell Royal Blue cotton sweatpants, and they didn't even have our numbers on them. They just gave us numbers. Like I had a #2 sweatsuit, even though I was number 13. And I got number 13 because our only choices were 13 and 15. And I was like, I'm going to buck the trend and go with the unlucky number. I would had my choice. I'd have been number 20 like I was in high school, but we didn't even get to choose our numbers. Now it's a multi-million-dollar business. I mean, it is. They got gear for days. So there's my big brother moment. My uphill in the snow, to school, uphill both ways. I mean, that's exactly what it is. But it feels that way. You're like, oh my gosh, ooh, that's the Sports Illustrated. That's the Sports Illustrated shoot right there. And there's no props. Anyone who thinks that I'm just up there on an 8-foot rim or I'm standing on the bounce was real. Matter of fact, I just threw down a dunk a week ago at 42. So there's still some bounce in the legs.
I believe it. That is a great one though. But that's hilarious funny. That you had the number didn't match the uniform you got, and I mean you kind of get what they gave you.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, no other choice.
So you were on Sports Illustrated and all this awesome stuff, and then you were going back and not having the number on your sweatsuit?
Oh, well, this was when I was at school. So I mean, ESPN did this big spread on me and John Stockton. This was again kind of the start of what Gonzaga basketball was, and I happened to be in a position where I got some of that attention and some of that recognition, and so this was all brand new. It wasn't this finely tuned machine that it is now, and so it was really exciting. It was really exciting because I didn't expect it. I didn't go to Gonzaga so that 20 plus years later I could be talking to you all about it. That wasn't I try to say, like, had you sat me down as a high school senior and said, hey, you write the script for how your college career could go, like I couldn't dream big enough to what we accomplished. I had no idea. I had no context or concept for what we actually ended up accomplishing and then what that impact would be throughout my entire life.
Blown away. That's incredible. I just humble beginnings, and now you're helping run the largest 3-on-3 tournament in the world. I want to touch on that a little bit. 24, I know about it. I love it. They shut down the streets in Spokane. If you're watching and you don't know, now you know, you got to go. It is a show. Whoa. 24,000 players play. That's not counting the brothers and the sisters, but there is age divisions for kids that can barely walk to the co-ed. I mean, you can touch on that if you'd like, but it's incredible. Yeah. It's fun for everybody, no matter if you're a hooper, serious hooper, or just an rec hooper. It's an incredible experience.
Yeah, so it started in 1990. It's a nonprofit, a not-for-profit organization here in the state of Washington. And it grew to as you've described, like a completely unique event. 24,000 athletes, 250,000 people. It's about a $50 million economic impact to our region. And we are celebrating our 31st year in 2020. I've been involved since year 25. So I got hired in this role as the executive director in 2014. And it's really, really hard to describe until you see it, because the numbers 3 square miles, 450 basketball courts. We play 14,000 games on the weekend. From incoming third graders, we're at the end of June is our traditional dates. And so we have recently graduated second graders are newly eligible, to 80-year-olds that play, and every person in between, wheelchair athletes, differently abled body athletes. It's the most diverse, the most vibrant, the most inclusive weekend of our year here in Spokane. If you have roots in Spokane, you come home and you can only, you have to choose between Christmas and Hoop Fest. You choose Hoop Fest because that's when you see everybody, and it's music, it's festival, it's everyone. And so It's a really, really unique event. It's a big piece of our fabric of our community. And like Gonzaga basketball, it's a big pillar as to why we claim we are Hooptown, USA. Because when you look at some of the things that we do, yeah, I mean, Chicago goes, well, there's no way Spokane, Washington can compete with us. Well, we have things that are superlative. No one can compete with Gonzaga basketball. No one can compete with Hoop Fest. So we have these like anomaly type things that are going like, gosh, what is going on up there? You know, why does it work? I mean, we execute Hoop Fest on the shoulders of about 3,000 volunteers. I mean, it takes 3,000 people just to execute the event. And yet we get 3,000 people to say, yes, I'll help. Yep, I'll be a part of it. Yep, I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm excited to be a part of it. We volunteer every year. I mean, that's almost as great a story as the athlete story. And so it's this awesome event. And then from that, this organization grew around it. We run one of the largest AAU clubs in the country, league and tournaments here in Spokane. That's also 31 years old, ironically. We have an outreach program with our public school district called Ignite Basketball, you know, bringing basketball to kids for free, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We have a high school club team, Eastern Washington Elite. We run a high school tournament. So it just kind of morphs into the easiest way to say it for people that are in NBA markets. Every NBA team has a community outreach department. Well, we don't have an NBA team, so we're the community basketball program. We're the ones that build the courts and the parks. We're the ones that are installing art murals in the courts and the parks this year. We're the ones that invest back into the community through the sport of basketball, creating that opportunity, creating that connection. That is our responsibility, and it's all based on that awesome weekend and event called Hoop Fest.
Incredible marquee event, but Hooptown, USA, am I right?
Yeah, it is. So we launched that one last year at Hoop Fest, 2019. And so I'll tell you the Reader's Digest, I'll try to go through this one quick, but our Visitors Bureau a couple of years ago wanted to rebrand the city, kind of what is Spokane about and stand for. And so they asked me as a stakeholder, because of my tie to Hoop Fest, like, what do you think I stands for? Well, gosh, I have this great connection to Gonzaga basketball. Now I'm in this role at Hoop Fest. Like, I see basketball at every level. I've lived it and breathed it my entire life. And I said, like, we're a basketball town. Like, if the most impassioned fan base for Gonzaga basketball is the retirement communities. They may have never even touched a basketball, but they know every kid, their brothers and sisters, you know, their cousins. Hey, Matt, have you heard that recruit out of 2029 over on, man, I don't know what recruit is in 2029, but these people know what recruit is in 2029. You're going like, you all need to get a life, but that's the passion that we have for basketball and our sport. So I see this, I get to be a part of this. I get to feel this on a daily basis, really. And so I was like, we are basketball. So this is where I kind of gave that feedback to our Visitors Bureau. Well, obviously that's too narrowly focused for a Visitors Bureau. They want to be everything for everybody. So they pick some random thing. I don't even know what it is. They would have been better off just saying we are Hooptown USA and running with it. So, but as an organization, we said, how do we continue to kind of bring this theme to life? You know, when you go to Nashville, Tennessee, you get hit over the head with country music, right? You know exactly where you're at when you show up there. Well, how do you create that here in Spokane and Hooptown? That when you get off, you're like, why are there basketball hoops in the airport? Like, why do the trash cans in downtown have basketball graphics? Like, why is all this art in our city basketball related or basketball inspired? Like, what's going on here? So we've kind of taken it as our challenge or our rallying cry to kind of brand the city Hooptown USA. And so when we welcome the competition, you know, the Chicago example, Chicago's like, nah, heck no, we're a Hooptown. Well, good, let's talk about it. You know, let's come to Hoop Fest. Maybe we'll come to a Chicago tournament. Let's compete on it. Let's have some fun with it. And it's talking about the arts, it's talking about basketball, it's talking about the playing experience, it's talking about the volunteer experience. It's just talking about that connection and that identity that basketball provides all of us.
And I coach in the Northwest Conference, so I do know Whitworth. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention how good they've been.
Absolutely.
Division III level, that's a powerhouse for the last 20 years also. NBC camps.
Great example. Absolutely, Brant. Yeah.
Huge. The largest overnight camp in the world, NBC camps. Reaches
our high school, 2018.
Central Valley High School, women.
Yeah, girls, national champions. You know, every year we're whooping up on the west side, the Seattle teams in the state championships. State B is a huge basketball tournament here in Spokane for that smaller rural area high school state tournaments. So you start to go through all those different kind of bullet points or list of examples. And you gotta go like, oh, this kind of makes sense. And then through Hooptown, we were able to secure an investment last year of $1 million from one of our health systems to kind of bring it to life, to invest in our parks, kind of refurbish and enhance our courts in our parks. Hoop Fest has built 31 courts over its 31-year history. This is kind of an investment to help bring those back up to the higher quality. Where we put in 2 murals to kind of really combine art and basketball, that expression of creativity. Doesn't matter what your medium is, it's still creativity at the heart of it. And there's a lot of similarities in how we go about that living our passion. We're building a new signature outdoor court complex in our downtown park. And that was all through that Hooptown investment and multi-care health systems that saw the vision of it and put some money behind it.
That's incredible. You're doing so much, Matt, and I know it falls into your job, but I can tell it's a passion, and just the way you speak about it, you got me believing as a pilot. Hey, you're good. You're good at your job. I don't have $1 million to toss in to this one. But hey, that you got a University of Portland guy as a fan, and obviously I know Mike. I think your college roommate, Nielsen.
Yeah.
Nielsen, incredible guy, incredible podcast.
Yep.
Hoop Commitment. If you guys don't follow the Hoop Commitment on all of your stuff, it's a great podcast. I know you have one of the podcasts that I listened to, and that was a great episode there. I picked up a lot of knowledge from that one. We had a question here. Why do you do 3-on-3 tournaments versus a regular 5-on-5?
Yep. Accessibility. 5-on-5 tournaments are a lot harder, right? You're running up and down. It's harder to organize a team. 3-on-3 is just, it's simpler. Sam, you and I and Will could be a team. We don't need 8 guys or 9 guys. We could just go form a team and go play. So it's a little bit easier. The half-court game makes it more accessible for more athletes of different ages and different abilities. So there's a few different reasons. I mean, we run 5-on-5 tournaments too for youth teams and AAU teams. But the big show, the Hoop Fest is the big show, was always built on 3-on-3. And 3-on-3 used to be a lot more prevalent. I mean, every city has a 3-on-3 tournament. Every small city, every big city has some form. Chicago used to have a really big one. And so they used to be a lot more prevalent. And I think they're coming back now because 3-on-3 or 3x3 is now an Olympic sport. There's going to be an Olympic sport here in 2020 for the first time. Different style of play than what we play, but it's still 3-on-3. So it's just about accessibility and ease of play more than anything is why they started with a 3-on-3 tournament and just grew and grew and grew.
Accessibility. Anybody can play. I mean, that's one thing that I was just walking around and there's little 3rd grade girls lit up just with those brightest, hey, we just won, and they're so excited. And then you have, like you said, the 80-year-olds playing on these other courts, and it is an incredible 3-on-3 tournament. And let's see, we got a question from Will. Will's the advocate for disabilities. In the 3-on-3 tournament, are you very inclusive with having participants with disabilities or in wheelchairs? Talk to that, Matt.
Yeah, both. So when Hoop Fest started in 1990, we had kind of 2 co-founders, 2 gentlemen that are credited with starting Hoop Fest. One of them had played in a Gus Macker 3-on-3 in Seattle and wanted to come back and say, we want to have one in Spokane, but we don't want to be in a parking lot, like an arena parking lot or a fairgrounds. We want to shut down streets. So he was passionate, like, we got to put it in downtown and we're closing streets off. The other founder wanted to do something to benefit Special Olympics here in the state of Washington. So Special Olympics is our primary beneficiary that we write a check to every year. And we are the largest donor to Special Olympics in Eastern Washington, in the eastern part of our state. So it's been we've given them close to $1 million over the 30 years. And athletes of differently abled athletes, Special Olympic athletes, play for free at Hoop Fest each and every year. So we have Special Olympic teams, we have unified teams, so a mix of abilities, and we have wheelchair teams that all play for free, and then different ages. How our teams are structured, just so you know, because you talked about the divisions. So say X, me and Brant are a team. What we do is we have a computer system that we register with our other teammate. You know, we take Robin too because he got a nice jumper, so we got him on the squad. And we say, okay, what we do is we take average age and we take average height, and then we created an algorithm that groups us together against other teams that look kind of like us. So it's not like we sign up and we say, okay, we're going to play, 22 and under, 6 foot and over, because X is young. No, we go, okay, I'm 43, X is 21, Brant's closer to my age, Robin, and we take the averages. So it's not so much of us choosing the division. We're basically just choosing if we want to be competitive or recreational. And then the computer program does the rest. And we have so many athletes that we can fill out brackets. So really, Hoop Fest is about, there's 450 courts. There's probably 460 brackets, individual little tournaments on the weekend. So 460 teams walk away from Hoop Fest as champions. And that's how we make it fair. So back to your question, Will, around athletes of differently abled athletes, is that you play against differently abled athletes. Or if you're on a unified team, you play against other unified teams. The third grade girls play against third grade girls, and so everyone kind of plays to where it's a little bit more fair and even, so they have a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I think we might have just made a dream team 3-on-3, by the way. Me, you, and Brant.
That's a squad right there. Look out. It's hard for me to distribute as much as I would need to probably on that squad with only 2 other options to pass to. Need to pick up Robin, Sam, and Will, and Ian too.
Yep. I'm in the corner, hands ready. Just
let it fly, baby.
rock.
Let it fly.
All-time assist leader. You heard that right. Yes, he was the all-time assist leader. He passed up John Stockton. Matt Santangelo's NBA career didn't have as many assists as John Stockton because nobody in the history of the game has. So we know that Matt didn't, but still an incredible career at Gonzaga and now still impacting the world of basketball in a major way.
Oh, thank you.
What other skills can you learn from 3-on-3? I guess Sam has a question. What types of skills can you learn from 3-on-3? Or address this one, and then we'll give a quote, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, sounds good. So, Sam, do you know who John Stockton is? Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I figured. So his favorite way to play basketball is 3-on-3. And why is it his favorite way? Because it teaches spacing. It teaches the ability to depend on each other because the space is limited. It's not just a conditioning game where if you happen to be the most in shape person in 5-on-5, you kind of just wear people out and the game gets sloppy. Like 3-on-3, that everything is so condensed that you really have to set yourself up away from the basketball. You really have to go set a screen and use a screen. You got to be able to handle the ball in one place and be able to break down your defender in really small spaces. So it teaches you all these concepts that are really in such a small area that when you get to the 5-on-5 game and you get into space, you're just that much more efficient. The best players in the world work within the smallest spaces. When you look at Steph Curry's footwork or, the late, great Kobe Bryant, they wouldn't ever have to move off of a 2-by-2 foot square and they would light us all up because they're so efficient with their fakes. They're so efficient with their footwork. Well, 3-on-3 starts to teach some of those things because the space is at a premium. You have to be good and you have to know how to play away from the ball and you have to know how to use each other because it's not a game where you just hand it to LeBron and get out of his way or you hand it to James Harden and get out of his way. You have to use each other because space is so limited. And those are really the lessons that are really prevalent in 3-on-3, how to play away from the basketball, how to pass and cut, where do those backdoor actions happen? And then being able to guard people. I'm still a fan of man-to-man defense. You can't just sit back in a zone. You got to be able to get out and guard some people, and then you got to be able to help people who are guarding because they're going to get beat. So it just teaches some really good fundamental basketball principles that you can apply to every form, shape, style of basketball that you'll ever play throughout your life.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, you covered it well. You will get exposed. Like if you don't know how to play basketball at that level, like if you don't know what to do off a screen, if you don't know what to do here or there, like you will get exposed because you don't have as much people to come help. Like in 5-on-5, like let's say you know, miss a closeout or whatever and you do a bad job and the guy blows by you. Like there's other people, you know, people can rotate and come in. Like 3-on-3, there's less people to rotate. So if you get screwed, for lack of better terms, you're screwed. I mean, you're exposed now. You're done.
Yep. And your teammates are yelling at you. And I think, you know, the other thing too with Hoop Fest specifically is that it's built on outdoor basketball. I mean, outdoor basketball is unfortunately kind of a dying breed because people don't go to the parks anymore. Every time you play basketball, it's with a coach and practice, and it's structured. It's a tournament. It's a game. Or, you know, when 3-on-3 basketball was great, or when park basketball was great, people just went to the park. We weren't playing Fortnite. We didn't have video games. You just went to the park and hung out all day long and played ball. And so there's a lot of great life lessons in kind of just fending for yourself and just going to play ball. I mean, because you get exposed. I always say basketball is the most intimate sport because you're running around in your underwear, right? Your tank top and shorts. You're running around. Everyone can see what you got. And then if you can't dribble left-handed, you better believe there'll be a mom on the sideline. Force him left-handed. Force him left. I mean, so you better have your game tight because you will get exposed. And so it's a really intimate game. Everyone's on top of you. If dad's upset, the kid knows it. You know, everyone tries to coach these poor little kids. The kids are scared to death. They're out there just like, oh my God, the ball's too big. The rim's too high. I mean, it's a wonderful place to learn what you're made of. Right. And if you can fight through that fear and that discomfort of making mistakes or being scared, on the other side of those lessons are things you will carry with you forever and apply to all walks, all phases of your life. But you got to get through. You got to go out to the park one. You got to get exposed to, and then you got to get back up and do it again. And you just got to do it over and over again. And the more comfortable you get with being uncomfortable, the more valuable and more fulfilling, I believe, your life will be at the end of the day.
Man, people used to go to the park and hoop. Now people go to the park on 2K. Now they just sit at home and just play 2K My Player in the park. And it's so realistic now that became their lives. Forgot all about the real part.
Too. They think that's a real, like they're really doing it. And some of them probably break a sweat doing it too, but it's not the real sweat. It's not a real sweat.
2K did a nice job with it. They try to make it really realistic, and they got stores all around the park and everything. Like you're at home. You're on your couch. Yeah. You're not at the park.
We share a quote, a show. I'm going to share. You gave us 2 nuggets that I'm going to share. The first one, Fitz and Fuse quote, "We're going to go wherever you take us." That might be my new recruiting line that I pull out. It's a little bit different because I'm not able to pay for their school or, Linfield D3, Pacific D3. But I love that just trust that they had in you. And like you said, they may have used that on every kid, but it was true with you because you did lead them to a place. I mean, like you said, they had started to win right about the time you graduated high school, and you took them to the Elite 8 and the Sweet 16 and just had an incredible run there. And it's still impacting you and shaping you to who you are. The other one was from, I think it was you, but about your parents, that we had a lot of love, but not a lot of stuff. And I think that that's something that material possession, so many people think that's what's going to make them happy, is if they have a newer, or if they have a nicer, or if they have a faster. But what that usually does, those people are usually disappointed because there's always somebody that's going to have a bigger, newer, faster. And that's something that having love is what I strive. I mean, I want money and love because that gives you options. Money gives you options.
I'd love to try it out. Just see.
I'd like to know what it felt like, right?
Yeah, just to see if my philosophies are just a bunch of baloney, or if they actually. I only know this one side, so I'm gonna believe that I'm doing it the right way. But I would trade it in for some money just to see, just to test it.
Yeah, just to know what it was like. I mean, it probably wouldn't make me happier, but it might. Let's try it.
It might.
We don't know.
It definitely might.
It might. I don't know. As an assistant college basketball coach, Definitely love the game of basketball, but am not in it because it's the most lucrative profession I could have chose. But I am happy, and you don't argue with happy. Hunt, what do you got for us? Give us something.
My quote, guys, for this week, 4 words. 4 short, sweet, very meaningful words. Expect nothing, appreciate everything. Boom. Well said. Speaks for itself. Expect nothing. You're the driver of your own destiny. So go out there and make it happen. And when somebody helps you along the way, appreciate it. Don't take it for granted, because not everybody's out there to help you. There's a lot of people that are out there to, throw dirt on your name and stab you in the back. But when somebody comes along that's going to help you, appreciate it. Don't expect a damn thing.
I like it.
That's gold. Expect nothing, appreciate everything. Write it down.
Expect nothing, appreciate everything.
Expect nothing, appreciate everything. That's that entitlement society. There's a lot of people that feel like, oh, somebody owes me something, or I should get something because of this. Expect nothing, and then just whatever you have, appreciate it. And that's a great quote. I heard that, and it's simple, but it hits home right now, especially. And there's so many people that don't appreciate what they have. And I know I'm thankful to have people that I can call on. And Matt, I really appreciate you joining us, and definitely want to see Hoop Fest thrive. And if there's anything I can do here in Portland, or I'm speaking for X, but if there's anything he can do in Chicago,
oh yeah,
next June, Lord willing, I want to be into June.
Yeah.
There's no place better in the world. It might be a little bit hot. I remember one year I went when it was really hot, but it's part of the experience. Maybe that's National Lampoon's when she says, I can't feel my all part of the experience, honey. But you do remember.
No, well, you are always welcome, and it is, if you are a hoop head, like you can't help but fall in love with it once you see it. Like it's a great melting pot of humanity. We got a little bit of everything, and it's all based on the sport of basketball. So we welcome everyone to come check it out.
It is like a big celebration, like a festival, but basketball. Like you said, there's music, there's the cotton candy booths and the elephant ears, and there's face painting, and there's fun for everybody. And I know when I was thinking of guests for this show, I was like, man, if Matt would be willing to take the time, he'll be able to provide a lot of knowledge. And so don't undersell yourself. There's nobody else. If you're watching this, there's no other guests coming on. You got to hear from the legend, the living legend here tonight. So I really do appreciate it though, Matt. And like I said, if there's anything I can do to help or support, I won't mention too often about the Pilots beating the Zags, and definitely appreciate your time.
That's 2 times. No, I thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. Just, keep doing what you're doing, spreading the good word of basketball and all the different values that we learn from it, because it is valuable. And the more people we can get it exposed to the sport, the better off we all are, because it's a beautiful game. And we are fortunate to have it in all forms, even NBA 2K. So it's all good as long as we're around the game.
But Tony Hawk didn't get great at skateboarding by playing Tony Hawk the video game. I don't know. Is there still Tony Hawk the video game, or does nobody even know what that means?
Not that I've seen in a long, long time, but I was very young. I was very young when it was prominent. I do remember it slightly.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because I say "and one mixtape tour," and kids look at me like I have no clue, or they have no clue what I'm talking about.
Ball is life now. Ball is life.
Ball is a part of life, and it's a big part of all 3 of our lives. But I'm not a believer in the ball is life, because I want to be a good husband, a good father. There's a lot more to my life than just basketball. It's a big part of it, but it's just a game. It's the greatest game. Don't get it twisted. It's the greatest game, but it's just a game. So with that, we end our shows like this, Matt. We say that if you're going to walk on. That's how we wrap up. So now we can open up the mic and take